All right, come on in, everybody. Come on in, gather around. We are about to have another wonderful Sunday with our close personal friend, Sid Croft. So come on in, everybody. There's plenty of room. You don't no need to crowd. You can all fit in all together there. Hey, everybody, my name is Toilet Tea Paper. It's great to see you all here today, and I'm so excited for this episode of Sundays with Sid. Now, in honor of Sid's guest, Sir Richard Taylor, the visual effects amazing guru, I thought that I would show you a little bit how visual effects work. So I've got this green screen here, but using the green screen, I can be anywhere, like outer space.
Houston, we have a problem.
Or the Wild West.
Howdy, partner. Sure is nice to see you.
Or even in a medieval fantasy. Sire, there's a dragon at the gate.
Toilet, what? I'm alive. Toilet, we have a problem.
What?
We could not afford the computer to do the graphics, so nobody saw any of that. It's still just a green screen behind you.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, we put all the money into craft services. We thought that would be more important.
All right. Well, anyway, Sid, enjoy the show. Kelly, Sid, take it away. Well, what do they have at craft services?
Oh, we've got a wonderful vegan.
Ladies and gentlemen, the unusual artistry of Sid Croft.
Toilet, this is a Memorial Weekend. I think you need to go to the beach. You're so pale, you know. Well, actually, there's no sun. Okay, maybe next year. Hey, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. You know, I've been doing this show for 3 years, and I've handled so many technical problems. And maybe it's because I was a performer for 19 years of my life, and you learn to handle all kinds of glitches. Last Sunday, if you tuned in last Sunday, oh my God, we had many problems because my fans worldwide asked me, they were my guests, and I had a ton of them waiting to ask me questions. And we were 10 minutes into the show, and it was really going great. I loved all the questions they were asking me. And wouldn't you know, that Instagram went dead for 2 hours. So then I asked Kelly, hey, Kelly, did I do that? Yeah. Was it something I said?
I hope so.
Yeah. And also, I wasn't sure, and I asked Kelly after we went off the air, did I use a 4-letter word? Is my, my career over in doing a talk show? And she said, no, you had nothing to do with it, and don't blame yourself for it. Okay. I'm keeping my fingers crossed today because my guest that's coming on is the furthest part of the world, New Zealand. And it's not Sunday there right now. It's Monday. I think, Kelly, about 9 or
10 a.m.
10 a.m. in the morning?
Yep.
Oh my God. Thank you for getting up so early. And I'm so thrilled that the guest that's joining me today, that all of you, I didn't get a chance to talk about last week because it's great that you tuned in today, all of you, because I don't want you to miss this show. This is going to be fantastic. And what I was going to tell you last week, that my guest was knighted. And And about a year after he was knighted, uh, he was voted the well, he was not the New Zealander of the year. Yeah, how about that? And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am so thrilled because you've seen, you know, he is the creator of a company that I know you've all heard of. It's called WETA, and you've seen it on your screen, on the credits, on so many movies out there, and so many Academy Award movies. And so I just want to name drop one of them. There you are. Well, Richard, thank you so much for coming on. I was just going to name drop, you know, the trilogy of Lord of the Rings.
Hello, Sid. Lovely to see you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. All the way from New Zealand. Wow.
Yep, it's a midwinter morning here, and it's a very pleasant day. And I've already been down on the workshop floor talking about a crazy walking ostrich creature that we're going to build for something we're doing, and been discussing a robotic puppet that we're building at the moment, and hanging out with my assistant Ree to talk about all good things, fun and creative.
Well, Richard, let me ask you something. I got so many messages that when we did announce you actually yesterday that you were coming on, and they want to know, how did you, oh my God, no way.
I've also got a living Muppet. I'm a massive Henson fan as well as a massive Sid Croft fan, and I thought I must get myself a living Muppet. So this is Lottie, my little dog, and she sleeps next to me all day. But look at that fur cloth. Isn't it fantastic? And see the ping pong balls for eyes? She's got...
Are you sure it's not a puppet?
Oh, I think it is a puppet, actually. I think my wife's duped me for the last 4 years, and I keep looking where she's hiding in the room to be operating the servo controller. But it's very realistic because food goes in one end and comes out the other end. I've become quite fascinated by that little trick. We've never built a puppet that does that.
Oh,
but,
what a cool little guy.
She'll sit here on my desk while we interview. So I have the great pleasure of her sitting here on my desk. So I can rest my arms while I'm typing. So.
Hey, Richard, people want to know how you started. And, you know, I mean, you're so far away, and what an impact you've made on Hollywood and all the great movies out there. And I want you to tell us about King Kong and Blade Runner, and it just goes on and on. And there we posted yesterday, we showed you with a handful of Academy Awards. So I'm so honored to have you on. Thank you so much.
Well, Sid, needless to say, Sid and I have been good friends for probably a decade now. Our dear friend Jeff introduced us, and Jeff Stein lives near to Sid and took me around. I'd been telling Jeff of my great love of the Sid and Marty Croft shows from our childhood. When I was growing up, we had one black and white television channel in New Zealand. It started mid-morning, it finished at 11 o'clock at night. It was only black and white. So I never saw any of Sid's shows in colour until I was in my 15th year when we finally got a colour television. But when I first met Sid up at his treetop dwelling, I couldn't help. Unfortunately, I've got a terrible singing voice, but here you go. The bugaloos, they're in the air and everywhere, flying high, flying free, flying with the summer breeze, the bugaloos.
Wow, for you
Yeah,
to remember
my
that.
my my sister used to dress up in her nightie, and we'd put little wings on and run around the farmhouse where we're growing up. I have no idea what our parents thought of it all, but such strong and wonderful and warm memories. And that's really where it began. Obviously, been inspired by various things. I started learning to sculpt by digging clay out of a creek on the back of the farm. I had the good fortune of meeting my future wife when I was 13, and we moved to Wellington together when we were 17 to do our studies. But we set up a workshop in the back, actually in the bedroom of our flat. We would actually work on top of the double bed on a sheet of MDF, and that was our first workshop. And we started working in the television commercials business until we got a break when I heard that a local television producer wanted to make a television series similar to Spitting Image from England, the satirical weekly puppet show. And I thought that there would be dozens of people desiring to work on the show. So I went and managed to get some photographs of the owner of the company. I had been doing buffet sculptures in margarine as way of getting a three-course meal once a week for Tanya and I, because we were on the bones of our backside a bit. And I'd learned to become very proficient in sculpting margarine. So I had some spare margarine. I sculpted a caricature of this individual, the owner of this company. I then made a slush latex puppet out of a plaster mold with Tanya's assistance out of the bathroom of our flat. And I painted it, put a wig and a costume on it, and I put it inside a rubbish bag on his desk that night with my calling card on top of it. We were doing a TV commercial for him at the time, so I was able to sneak through the building and actually get into his office. I get a phone call the next morning. Remember, this is pre-cell phone, so the phone rings in my flat, and or in the flat I shared with Tanya, and it's the producer, and he informs me that I've got the job, but I needn't have bothered with the puppet because no one else had applied, and no one else probably would apply. But that started a 2-year legacy of making 2 satirical puppets every week between myself, Tanya, and one other chap who did the eye mechanisms. We built the eye mechanisms out of roll-on deodorant balls and the spring cable that you hang lacy curtains from. Brilliant, cheap mechanisms. And Peter Jackson saw that show on television. Didn't realise there were other people in New Zealand doing the same thing that he was doing. He was making his first movie, Bad Taste, in his mother and father's basement in his weekends. And he came and met with us. And I guess the rest is history.
History.
Onto a long string of TV shows. We were doing Hercules and Xena when we really got going. We'd done Hercules and Xena for 7 years, doing the Creature of the Week in collaboration with KMB and my dear friend Howard Berger out of LA. And in between, we were doing films for Peter: Meet the Feebles, Brain Dead, Heavenly Creatures, Forgotten Silver, Jack Brown Genius, Onto the Frighteners with Michael J. Fox, and then King Kong, and then we started King Kong in 1996, but 6 months in, Mighty Joe Young got put into production, and Universal got cold feet and pulled the plug on our King Kong. But if that hadn't happened, it's arguable that we probably would never have got to work on Lord of the Rings, because the falling over of King Kong is what inspired Peter to head out across the world and go and look for another opportunity. And the opportunity he came back with was the Lord of the Rings.
And you also, exactly what did you do in Lord of the Rings? Not only the special effects, but you also directed with him, right?
No, I didn't direct at all. I looked after, I was on the show for 7.5 years.
Wow.
We grew our company. When we started on Lord of the Rings, we had 38 people who had worked on a film or television show before. We ultimately grew to 158 people. So about only 1/8 of our company had ever worked in the screen industry before. So that required a massive training camp to get everyone up to speed. We ultimately delivered 48,000 separate things across the trilogy of the films. We looked after our part of the design of and then manufacturing of armor, weapons, creatures, miniatures, special makeup effects and prosthetics. The average age of our team when we started was just 22 years old, and it was an extraordinarily exciting experience. When we hit filming went on for 2.5 years. There was 3 to 4 units filming at any one time. We had 12 shipping containers out on trucks traveling around the country at any one time, going to location. And we also serviced 4 miniatures units because there was such a vast number of miniatures. We built 72 miniatures for Lord of the Rings.
But let me ask you something. I apologize for jumping in, because in a way, doing the creatures, I mean, you had to direct, you know, your creatures that you built, the animatronic, right? There were all kinds of different puppets and whatever, close up and
Yeah, that's the case. I won't use the word direct because I cannot lay claim to being a director on the film. But of course, when you have puppets, suit characters, prosthetic characters, you do have to do a great deal of choreography of your characters and work with your team. The whole, you know, you appreciate this so clearly, Sid, the art of rubbing your tummy and patting your head is hard enough with one person, but when you string 6 people together to operate a single puppet and you're all trying to do that in unison, it gets very, very tricky. So, yeah, on the biggest days, we had up to 400 people on set in prosthetics, armor, weapons. You know, we'd start applying makeup at 2 in the morning for a 7 o'clock call, and then it would take many hours to get everyone out of their makeup. So days were long, but days were exciting, and there's not a day I wouldn't have wanted to do on that trilogy of films. It's one of the greatest experiences of my life.
And then I don't know how many years later, The Hobbit, right? That's
right. The Hobbit was in between. We, of course, went back and did King Kong, and that got off the ground the second time round. We did the first Avatar film, numerous other films. We've done about 120 feature films to date. We actually design on about 50 films, TV shows, or video games every year. But only about 7 of those films or TV shows go into production in our workshop. And I always say that our work is the cherry on the icing of the chocolate cake. If the chocolate cake is your, you know, period dramas or your contemporary rom-coms, they're not going to need anything that we do. The icing, of course, is when things start to go into fantasy, science fiction, prehistoric history, and then hopefully those companies want the cherry on that icing, which is prosthetic makeup, armor and weapons and creatures and vehicles, props, costumes, anything that we make. While also servicing, we have a very decent division servicing the location-based experience area of work as well. And probably the most complex robotics that we do is for that area more than the film industry, because sadly, a great deal of the animatronics puppetry side of our career in the film industry has been adopted and achieved through digital effects today. But I didn't want to lose that artistry from within our workshop, such as my passion for it and our company's passion. So we had to pivot to a different industry so that we could keep puppetry and robotics alive in our company. And that has proved to be the location-based experience industry, theme experiences, museums, etc.
Well, you have a park, right? Don't you have a park in New Zealand?
Well, we don't own a park as such, but we run a tourism offering from within our company. We have 6 businesses under the WETA Workshop banner, and one of those is tourism, and we've run tourism offerings based around the creativity of what we do for about 14 years now. The primary offerings are here in Wellington, but 3 years ago, we made the decision to build a major walkthrough experience called WETA Workshop Unleashed, a fantastical film effects experience. And it's the opportunity to unleash people's imagination as they enter a fictitious version of our own workshop and go on a wild and wacky walk through a completely warped version of what we do. But in turn, of course, what we're doing is inspiring young people to think about a future in the creative arts, demystifying what we actually do for a career to show people that they can also do it at home, and trying to open parents' minds to the fact that there may be a really viable career opportunity for their child that doesn't have to be academia focused. And,
well, look, we both started as puppeteers, and look how far both our careers have gone. No, you know, there's so much talent out there. And, you know, when you talk about your park, you sent me a lot of footage on it, and it's mind-boggling. I mean, just the walkthrough, what you get to see is just, it's so exciting, because it's like going backstage, you know, and getting to see the works of artistry and, you know, creativity. And what about, oh my God, I know you just opened a mall in China, and oh, tell us about that, because what you sent me some footage on it, it just blew David Copperfield. I mean, the 3 of us are working on well, there are more than 3 people working on it, but we're working on another mind-boggling, blow your mind project. And of course, Richard, we both worked for Magic Leap too. I mean, yeah. And when you said earlier that you came to my house, I'll never forget, immediately you called your sister and said, you cannot believe, you're not going to believe whose house I'm in right now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I did. My sister's a year and a half older than me, and so was quite influential in my childhood, and chose the TV shows, the times we're allowed to turn the television on. So thankfully I was introduced to Sid Croft as much through my sister's decision to turn the telly on than my own ability to get there. I've been working in China now for 24 years. I originally went up there to start manufacturing. I have a great love of collectibles, as my office can contest to. They're literally all around me.
Wow.
And
What a treat. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been making these type of resin models most of my teen and adult life. So when we finished Lord of the Rings, I had a great desire to create a collectibles company to make the high-end polystone collectibles of Lord of the Rings. And that's indeed exactly what we did. And that required me finding a manufacturing partner, which required me going into China. That relationship with China has grown over the years very significantly. And pre-COVID, I was up in China 1 week in every 4, working on various projects. The most significant is a museum called the Museum of Traditional Chinese Herbal Medicine. And we've actually designed the museum building. It's a 37,000 square meter building based off a lotus flower petal alighting on water. It was actually, I whiteboarded it literally on the whiteboard right here in the room. And after 6 years, that museum is close to opening. It's probably one of the most bonkers museums in the world. You enter in the bowels of creation and you exit across the surface of a universe spanning spaceship complete with robotic puppeteered alien life forms, etc., etc. So, but the shopping mall you refer to, this is the Haiku duty-free shopping mall in Hainan Island. It's the largest duty-free shopping mall in the world, but we were hired to design the atrium. Now, the atrium is massive. It's 45 meters tall by 50 meters across. About 10,000 people can stand in the atrium, both on the balconies and on the floor. And the duty-free shopping mall is selling only sort of AAA high net level brands. So therefore, we had to create something that was deeply immersive, incredibly reactive to the public's engagement with the environment. When people sit, walk, stand, interact with the environment environment emotionally reacts to them. And the whole room goes through a hourly pre-programmed lighting display, audio-visual display, and then is altered by the passage of the public through the space. So we designed it and oversaw its facilitation from New Zealand, and then an amazing company called Da Feng was our collaborators in the construction of the space.
Richard, let me ask you something. My viewers, which people are watching us all over the world, can they pull these images up, like the shopping mall or the park or the walkthrough? Can they, because you did send me, you're always sending me, you know, mind-blowing videos of, and the park, I mean the shopping mall. I've never seen anything like that, ever.
Thank you. Thank you. I think what we could do afterwards, we could send you some links to videos, etc., and then you could post them if you like.
Oh, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
Everybody's so curious, and there's a lot of people watching right now. I'm looking at their messages, and you know, you're blowing everybody's mind.
Well,
it's incredible.
Well, what I'd like to say to your audience, and hello everyone, if I wasn't talking to you, I may well be sitting listening to Sid and his other guests. I'm passionate fan of what Sid has done and who Sid is still today, because I have the great pleasure of interacting with Sid at a friendship level and also a professional level quite frequently through the year. So I feel very blessed. And interestingly, as I'm sure Sid would agree with, that actually is one of the greatest blessings of the career that we've been fortunate to work in. Your paths intersect with the most incredible and extraordinary collection of people. Invariably, all of them are uplifting, enriching, bring something very special to your life. I've had a great friendship with Ray Harryhausen before he passed, the great stop animator, with Dick Smith, the famous makeup artist, etc. This is all, you know, from our humble beginnings. You could never have imagined at the age of 16, 17 that you would ever have the chance to sit in the home of a Sid Croft or a Ray Harryhausen. But that is the sort of the community that exists around what we do, and it's been very, very stimulating and uplifting and very rewarding having the chance to interact with those type of people. But Sid, I just make the point to your listeners, there is a natural misconception when you have done something like a Lord of the Rings or a King Kong or an Avatar, that you would want to stay focused in only that type of medium, a medium that may win you awards, and it might and it brings you the prestige of playing in, you know, hundreds of thousands of cinemas across the world, being seen by billions of people, your work being seen by billions of people. But for me and our company, that's not at all the case. What we want is the variety of the creative process, whether it be collectibles, tourism offerings, whether it's building location-based experiences or making digital games, whether we're working in the emerging new technologies like the metaverse. We are not focused on a single medium. We love the diversity of the journey of creativity, and the more diverse we can be, the more we can offer a broader spectrum of people in New Zealand here an opportunity to come and work with us at the workshop.
Richard, I can, you know, I understand exactly what you are saying, and because my career, you know, I started as a performer, and you know, I've been in vaudeville and burlesque, and you know, I can relate to everything that you just said, because isn't it exciting in our lives that we were given the creativity to keep branching out. And I know you are too. We're really two very curious people. And if we've got the creativity, you know, and the talent, and like you just said earlier, bringing in those hundreds and thousands of people into your world and letting them also explode their minds, you know, along with you. Wow. I'm so grateful for every day, you know, every single day of my life. And I've been on this planet since Lincoln was the president, and you can't knock me off with a baseball bat. No, it's so exciting. You know, I've watched your career even before we have met, because, you know, even though you're in New Zealand, so far away, I mean, but wow, you've touched the entire world. You know, the WETA name and the Richard Taylor name, Sir Richard. Tell us about that. How did that happen?
Oh dear. Well, I must say I still haven't quite rationalized that, and it's been about 12 years now. I got a letter from the Queen of England, or from the palace,
yeah,
which I opened, and it was I don't know what it would be called, a dissertation on the things that we had been doing. A great deal of those things we've been doing quietly and privately with respect to our philanthropic work, and then the things that we have been doing to try and inspire young people in the creative industries to pursue, that this is a career. We do still suffer a little bit, and we certainly did when I was younger, the thing that so many of your audience have heard, which is there's no future in the arts, son or daughter. If you pursue the arts, you'll end up X, Y, and Z, right? So I've been, my soapbox is definitely trying to inspire people to think about a future in the arts, because all of our children get channeled through an academic education, and it is a given, just an absolute given. I would argue, Sid, that you were probably the same. I certainly am. If I didn't have a creative outlet, I would have been completely lost in the academia of my schooling years. So this endeavour to try and push the creative arts within New Zealand, specifically within the film industry, and take as many people along for the ride as possible was what I guess came to the attention. And you have a choice to go to the UK and be knighted. In this case, it would have been by the Queen. But I chose to stay in New Zealand to be knighted by our Governor General. I felt that it would be lovely to be knighted in the company of my family, and my dad. My mum had passed sadly, but my dad was able to come, and it was a beautiful day. My daughter, who was 4, there was a person playing the piano while everyone was getting knighted, and my daughter, being a free spirit, got up and just danced around the floor in front of everyone, completely oblivious to the crowd, all the formalities. So that made it a very, very special day, and it's a precious thing. It has given me the ability to meet some very incredible and exciting people, and I feel very honoured to carry this title. I don't use it ever, other than for state or political, if I'm invited to, well, no, not even political functions. If I'm invited to state functions, then I communicate with my title, but my business card doesn't have it on it. I never refer to myself as sir. It's very odd knowing my upbringing. My father was born in northern England in a mill town, a dirt-floored, semi-detached cottage in a row of 100 other identical cottages in a black smoke-stained sky. And so for him, knowing that his son has now got this title is very, very abstract.
Did you ever meet the Queen?
No, I didn't. Sadly, I've met many of the other royals. I've met the King. I actually toured the Prince Charles, who is now obviously the King of England, through our workshop, as I did Prince William, which was Prince William's visit was one of the most stunning visits we've ever had, because for starters, he turned up in a people mover crammed in the back seat between his mate and his mate's girlfriend and the driver. That was it. No security, because sometimes when royalty visit the workshop, it's a very formal affair, lots and lots of state cars and security. And we're told, all the children at the workshop, to date we've had over 100 babies born to staff on the workshop floor. Some of those people now work at WETA, but at the time we had lots of littlies from 1 year old to maybe 14 years old, and they were all there with their flags, their Union Jack flags, and we'd drawn a line with chalk on the car park floor and said, you've got to stay behind the line in case one of the big cars comes in. But anyway, my son was there. He was 8 years old, and as Prince William opened the door, my son couldn't contain himself, and he ran up. He put out his hand and he said, my name is Samuel Thomas Taylor. I'm from WETA Workshop, and I'm a Thunderbird boy. naming a children's television show that I grew up on and now my son grew up on. And Prince William put out his hand and said, "Oh, hi, Sam, my name's Will. Why don't you show me around?" And that was it. They held
Wow, how cool.
held hands through the workshop. It was very special.
You know, I was in a show in London for 6 months in Piccadilly, and I wasn't invited to do the Night of 100 Stars at the Palladium for the Queen. It was a charity of hers. But on Sunday afternoon, I got a phone call. Someone dropped out, and if I could just come and do 2 to 3 minutes. So I did meet the Queen backstage where we all lined up.
Yep.
And when she had the lady in waiting behind her, because 100 people on stage, she had no clue who anybody was, and because the show was 5 hours long, and she sat in the royal box for the whole 5 hours, and Liberace was like the big star, and he's the one that suggested me. Because I worked with him. I knew him since 1952. And so he suggested to the producer, "Oh God, you got to get Sid Croft." So the Queen comes to me and she said, "Oh, what cute little dollies." That's what she said to me. And, my dad, when I wanted my first puppet, my dad, said, "First of all, you're a boy and you want a dolly, no, $3.98. He said, "That could feed your family for weeks. I definitely am not going to get it for you." But I went after school. I sold Christmas cards. My family didn't even know it. And I saved up, it took 6 months and I got my first puppet. And then I became a street performer because I didn't come, and I'm sure you didn't come from a theatrical family. How did you end up doing you're the king out there. What did you say earlier? You said, "Oh my God, how many movies have you done?"
We've done about 120 films.
Just 120. You know what I just saw? A cocaine bear. I know it was.
I haven't seen it, Sid.
You gotta see it.
No, we loved working on it, but we haven't seen it. We love working on Megan, but I haven't seen that one yet either. And The Tank has just come out, which is a low-budget horror movie that we worked on with a Kiwi director last year. And that jumped it stayed at #1 in the trailers in the US for 2 weeks. And that's a low-budget, cast of 4 monster creature feature, a monster suit character with an animatronic head. So your audience may enjoy having a look out for that one. Well, look, it doesn't, very small number of people ultimately come from an entertainment background. In order of importance, Sid, I list, you said earlier about being, inquisitive. I absolutely believe that the primary attributes of a creative person are 1, having an inquisitive mind, and 2, having an observational eye. Not walking through the world trying to stop yourself tripping over or banging your head, but actually looking at the world, observing the world, inspecting the world for the beauty within it, for all the ugliness, for the unique lessons of life that you're taught visually that you can then bring to your work and inspire you. And that only happens if you're highly inquisitive, if you are constantly consuming information and imagery around you. And I found that attribute from my childhood. My mum was a science teacher. My dad was an aircraft engineer. So there was a lot of stimulus from those two areas. And then growing up in the countryside, which had the stimulus of Mother Nature and the natural world, was a a great formula to stimulate your mind. But I list in order of importance passion, enthusiasm, tenacity, and then talent. Talent does not come first on the list for people to make a career in this industry. And those that are listening that want to break into the creative industries, young people that may be listening, that are questioning whether they have the overt talent, it comes forth on the list. If you are passionate, enthusiastic, and tenacious, almost anything is possible. And I consider that Beatrix Potter wrote it the best. She describes Squirrel Nutkin as being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right? If you're
That's right.
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, just look at Sid. Sid is Squirrel Nutkin. I reckon,
No, but
I reckon
Richard,
Beatrix Potter invented Sid.
no, but Richard, I gathered all this information. You know, I've been in the business 83 years right now, but I was so lucky to be able to be in vaudeville, in burlesque, you know, in a circus when the big top sat 15,000 people, but I was in the sideshow, the freak show, as the world's youngest puppeteer. All that information, just gathering it like a squirrel. You're right. You know, gathering all that information and then using it all. It's amazing. It's just amazing to me, you know, not knowing when I'm in the circus and I cried every day. I wanted to go home because it was frightening. It was dark. It was frightening for a young 15-year-old kid, you know, especially in those days, you know, to leave home like that because I was making $50 a week. And my dad said, no, you got to quit school. We're going to be millionaires. That's $200 a month. You know, we're going to be able to live in luxury. And there I was, you know, on a train, on the upper berth, no window. I had no window above the man that ate fire. So he smelled like kerosene, you know, and all the freaks that, you know, we could use that word in those days, the odd people that didn't like each other. And they certainly hated me because I wasn't odd, you know, I was just a puppeteer. And then when my banner, which was at the end, you know, when it moved to next to the stars, the Mr. and Mrs. Fisher, that were the giants, 9-foot tall giants. And then they really hated me because, you know, they'd been with the circus for, you know, decades. And here this little kid came and he was bringing in families that were afraid to take their kids in there. But they had me out on the ballet stage all day long, you know, with my puppets. And then the kid would want to come in and see my show, you know. But all that information that we gather, you know, like I know you're the same. I love looking under a rug, you know, just everything, every particle. I'm so interested in. And just talking with you when we have our meetings on Zoom, it's just amazing. And I'm so honored, you know, that you're working with David Copperfield and Debbie Allen and all those incredible people, you know, that we have involved in this unbelievable project, which I know everybody out there, I keep telling you, you're going to hear about it, but it's very, very soon. You know, we're at the point now, we're ready to explode. And thank you so much, Richard, for being part of my life, you know. Just the other, I think a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about, this incredible character, and the movement and what we expect from something that the world has never seen before, and wow, just listening to your brain, it's unbelievable for me, I quit school when I was 15 years old, so my vocabulary is, I don't use big words. I don't know what they mean, but it all comes from my heart, and just to get the opportunity to work with such incredible talent and creativity. What a big word that is. And we all have it. Every one of us has it. We just have to expose it, and don't, like you said earlier, Richard, don't give up, because if you feel like you want to make a journey, don't let anybody take you away from that journey. You've got to experience it, and we can all make it. What I learned about this business, Richard, is I stay very focused. I'm on a project that I believe in, and I want to get it completed. And better than all of us, we hit brick walls, but we don't give up, and then we'll hit another brick wall, because we have to see it before we even show it to anybody. That's the way we work, and all those shows that we did, we did DC Follies, just like your Spitting Image. Did you know that we did? It was a huge hit over here. Yeah, and I know that you created 70 caricature, characters for your show. What was it called? Public Eye.
It was called, Public Eye. It was.
I love that title.
Yeah, a very crude, simpler version of Spitting Image. I had the good fortune eventually to go and meet the Spitting Image people. I actually, it was Peter Fluck and Roger Law were the people that invented Spitting Image. And I phoned up when we arrived in England, and I introduced myself and I asked if I could please speak to Peter Fluck or Roger Law, and I got put through to Roger Law, and I explained who I was and that we had just completed 2 years of making a Spitting Image-like show called Public Eye, and I would love to come and see him. And his answer to me was, like hell you have, and hung up the phone.
Thinking that you were going to swipe his idea.
Thinking that I was having him on because he had never heard of it, and maybe he'd heard of New Zealand, but he certainly had never heard of our And jump forward 25 years, and I get a phone call, and it is Roger Law, and he goes, hello, my name's Roger Law. I'm traveling through New Zealand. I am aware of your company. I wonder if I could come and visit. I made the Spitting Image show, and I was almost tempted to go, like you have, but I'm not that quick-witted. So when he came in, I related the story of how he hung up on me all those years earlier. But as you say, the brick walls you must always break down, and it's easy to perceive that there is some form of privilege, or there's some form of that it gets easier because of what you've achieved. It doesn't, and there isn't. You just soldier on, basically, as you do, Sid. I watch you work with such focus and such passion at every new project. And you could argue of anyone in the industry, you have bought yourself the golden key to open any door, but you don't. There isn't a golden key for you to buy, for me to buy, for anyone to buy.
No,
so you just,
not at all.
In this type of business, you just have to throw yourself at it. And Douglas Adams wrote in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the art of flying is to throw yourself at the ground and miss. Right? Fantastic quote. And
I love that quote.
a long time ago, I made an adaptation of that quote, which is the art of innovation is to throw yourself at failure and miss. Right? It's not given that you will miss failure if you try and innovate, but you have to throw yourself at the risk of failure in case or otherwise you just will never ever risk anything. You have to be brave enough to either mildly humiliate yourself or significantly fall flat on your face in front of your peers or your friends.
But you know what, Richard? I have told everyone this all my years in the business, and I don't know what brought me on that journey, but I tell everybody, go left, because everybody goes right. You know, take the chance and go left. I've had a lot of failures. We all have. But you know what? I also tell everybody out there, we learn from a failure. You know, we learn so much. What we think is bad is really good because it stimulates our mind and we go, wow, why did that happen? Why did that person say that? And I always try to throw myself into their minds or their bodies and wonder, what do they mean by that? You know? But,
yeah, so to that end, like that's a beautiful piece of advice because it's so ultimately so simple, and it reminds me of an incredible piece of advice I was given by the great Joe Rohde. Joe Rohde, as many of the people listening will know, is one of the great Disney Imagineers. He's now moved to other opportunities, but for a very, very long time, he designed a great deal of the Disney worlds. One of the most prescient and inspirational thinkers in the world, and he could speak a dissertation multiple hours long on the value of creativity and how to tackle it and so on. But he said to myself and my dear colleague Rick Aythorne once, if it's not wrong, it's right.
that's right. Wow.
Simple. If it's not wrong,
it is right.
Right.
That's right.
And that seems a bit implausible and a bit silly and but if you actually stop and think about what that means relative to your own gating mechanism, when you're gating the ewes from the rams on the farm, and the decisions that you're having to make through your life at almost rapid fire speed to determine your path, especially in a fast moving environment such as our workshop, playing to a code that is as simple as if it's not wrong, then it's right.
That's
is
right.
An amazingly powerful tool to help one, because you know intuitively, instinctively in your very gut if it's wrong. And therefore, if it's wrong,
You'll
then
make
you
it
know
right.
it's wrong. But if you don't have that sensation in your gut, if you don't have that uncertainty, then it's almost certainly right. And you might as well give it a go.
Incredible. Wow. Hey, Richard, you know, we've been on for a whole hour. It's incredible. And I really thank you so, so much. We'll be talking soon, very soon. We do a lot of Zooms together, and there's one coming up real soon. Oh my God, look at that face.
Oh, she's been asleep. She's grumpy because I've woken her up.
How old is she?
4.5. She was supposed to be the children's dog, but I became besotted in her and her in me, and now we're inseparable. It's like I've got a hairy growth on my cheek. I'll wake up in the morning, right? There's a bed next to the bed, but I'll wake up in the morning and she's like this on my face. And, oh, geez, that's crazy.
How can you not fall in love with that?
I know. It seems so mesmerizing. We've always had dogs, and they've always been central to our lives, but this one is somehow just extra special. And yeah, feel very pleased.
Richard, you know, I've never been to New Zealand. I've been to Australia, and I promise you, that's always been. I wanted to always go to New Zealand. It's the paradise of the world. Oh no, I've talked to a lot of people that have not only moved there, you know, but have experienced the most beautiful people, and that's the way to live. And so I'm coming to visit you soon.
We would love that. We are very blessed living here, and we would love to see you and Kelly and your family, and of course drag Jeff Stein down with you, because we haven't seen him for a long time.
No.
Look, Sid, let me say thank you to your listeners.
Well,
if you're listening to this specific talk, it means that you're in the guild of everything that's joyful about puppetry, creative process, and Sid Croft, and I'm right there with you, even though I may
thank you so much
you in the fan club.
What a great compliment coming from you, and thank you so much. And I do have to call you Sir Richard Taylor, because it just feels good that I've never known anyone. Well, yeah, Elton John, he's been knighted. I do know Elton, but I don't think he likes to be called Sir Elton John. Just Elton John. And thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to see you next week, and to be continued. And thank you again so much, Richard.
Okay, Sid, Kelly, all the best to you. Love to everyone, and let's just rock on and see what happens in the tomorrow.
That's right.
Have
Thank
a great
you again
day
for coming on. What an honor. What a great honor.